You know, when you picture a Roman feast, what comes to mind? I bet it's something like lavish banquets, people reclining on couches, maybe eating grapes until they burst, right? Well, yeah, that's part of the story, but it is definitely not the whole story. So let's get into it, because what the Romans really ate reveals this fascinating tale of two completely different worlds living side by side.
I mean, to really get the myth, we have to start with the spectacle. The Roman writer Petronius, he describes a dinner party where this whole roasted boar gets brought out, and when the carver slices into it, a flock of live birds flies out, just flapping all around the dining room. Seriously, this wasn't just food, this was pure theater, designed to completely shock and awe the guests of the super rich. But here's the question we have to ask. Was this kind of wild extravagance the norm, or was the daily reality for the average Roman citizen something else entirely? The answer, well, it tells us pretty much everything we need to know about Roman society.
See, in ancient Rome, what was on your dinner plate was a direct reflection of what was in your wallet and your place in society. The gap between the rich and the poor wasn't just wide, it was a total culinary canyon.
Now, get this. For the vast majority of people in the Roman Empire, we're talking millions of people, a staggering 75% of their entire daily caloric intake came from just one source. Not flamingo tongues, not exotic fish, but simple, humble grains.
All right, so let's zoom in on the plebeians, the everyday workers, the soldiers, the families that really made up the backbone of Rome. What was on their plate day in and day out?
You gotta meet puls. This wasn't just a dish, it was the dish. It's this thick, simple porridge made from whatever grain was cheapest. A lot of the time that was millet, which, today we mostly use as birdseed. For millions of people, this was the taste of daily life.
So the whole point of the common diet was that it was incredibly repetitive, but it was functional. A typical meal was built around pulse or some coarse bread, and you'd supplement that with a little protein from lentils, some basic vegetables like cabbage, and get your fats from olives. And to drink? Nope, not fine wine, but something called pasca, a cheap, sour wine mixed with water. It was standard issue for soldiers and the poor.
Okay, so now let's climb the social ladder. How did things change when you had a little more coin in your pocket? We're not quite at the emperor level yet, but think of this as the Roman upper middle class. And wow, the difference is just stark. All of a sudden, that coarse barley bread of the poor becomes fine wheat bread. Legumes and vegetables, they get replaced with pork, lamb, and chicken. The soured wine turns into quality aged vintages. And just look at what else pops up on the menu. Delicacies like farmed snails, hare, and, yep, even dormice. It's a completely different culinary universe.
The structure of the day, though, was pretty similar for everyone. A quick breakfast, the ientaculum, right at dawn, a fast cold lunch, or prandium, around midday, usually leftovers, something you could eat without stopping work. The entire day built towards the main event, the cena, or dinner. For the poor, that meant more pulse. But for the rich, well, that's where things get really wild.
Okay, now we are entering the world of those flying birds from the beginning. For the super elite, the cena was not about getting full. Oh no. It was about power, status, and showing off your wealth in the most jaw-dropping ways imaginable.
So, the famous Roman foodie Apicius once declared that the tongue was the tastiest part of the flamingo. Serving a whole platter of these was a huge sign of wealth. It was basically a way to tell your guests, I am so rich I can afford to waste an entire exotic bird for a single tiny bite.
And here's another one that's a pure status symbol. Sow's womb. To get what they considered the perfect texture, a sow would be spayed right before it was butchered. It was a dish that was defined entirely by its incredibly elaborate and expensive preparation. And then you've got the famous dormice. These weren't just mice caught in the wild. Oh no! The wealthy would raise them in these special clay pots called glirararia, fattening them up on nuts before stuffing them with pork and baking them in honey. It was a sweet and savory appetizer.
And just to put all this in perspective, let's look at the Emperor Vitellius. This guy was famous for his gluttony. A single one of his dinner parties cost a minimum of 400,000 sesterces. Today, that's over $200,000 for one meal. His most legendary creation was this dish he called the Shield of Minerva. It was this massive platter that combined the absolute rarest and most expensive ingredients from all across the empire. We're talking the livers of parrotfish, the brains of pheasants and peacocks, those flamingo tongues again, and the milt of moray eels. This is excess on an absolutely imperial scale.
So beyond all the shocking ingredients, what were the actual foundational flavors of Rome? Well, there were two key ingredients that you'd find in pretty much every kitchen, from the poorest apartments to the richest villas.
First up, there's garum. Think of it like ancient Rome's ketchup or soy sauce, this salty, savory flavor bomb that they put on everything. It was made by layering fish guts and whole small fish with salt and just letting it ferment in the sun for weeks. The smell was so bad that making it was banned inside city walls. Now the rich got the finest filtered liquid, the garum, while the poor used the sludgy leftovers, called alec, to flavor their porridge.
Now, the second ingredient is a bit more sinister. See, without sugar, the Romans needed sweeteners. A popular one was sapa, a syrup made by boiling grape juice for hours. But here's the crucial part. They boiled it in lead pots. This process created something called lead acetate, which gave the syrup this sweet taste the Romans loved, but it was also a potent neurotoxin. Some historians even argue that chronic lead poisoning from things like this might have actually helped contribute to the downfall of the Roman elite.
So after this whole journey through the Roman kitchen, what can we take away from it? How does any of this connect to our world today?
Well, what's amazing to me is thinking about what wasn't on the Roman table. So many foods we think of as essential to Italian cuisine today, they all came from the New World, and the Romans had no idea they existed. No tomatoes, no potatoes, no peppers. I mean, can you imagine? Their food landscape was fundamentally different from what we think of.
So what is Rome's real culinary legacy? It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? On one hand, their simple, common diet of grains, olives, and wine became the foundation for the healthy Mediterranean diet we talk about today. But on the other hand, their elite feasts are this timeless, cautionary tale about extreme consumption and the deep, deep inequality that food can represent.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. When we look at our own food culture, with its superfoods and its fast food, its celebrity chefs and its food insecurity, how different are we really from the Romans? It seems this tale of two tables is a story that just keeps getting told.